W5FC.
W5, FT, N5, OUR.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Ooh, it's 9 o'clock. Does anyone need to use a repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? I'll take that as a no. This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray Main. My name is Tom, and I'll be your net control session. I will be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help the amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to amateurs interested in this topic. We encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break, break, very enthusiastically, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from world net control, that would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or the famous Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Just go to W5FC.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome, and you need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is around 90 minutes long and structured in the following parts. We have general announcements. We have Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. National Space Society events. Discussion topic of the evening. What's up with a special guest presenter tonight. Space exploration and space history. Constellation of the week. Space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, and if we have time, astronomical Q&A and the 73 round. Okay, let's get started. I am going to take low power short time check-ins. No, you don't have to be short, just short time, or low power. Please come now with your call sign name, your location, let me know which you are in the low power short time.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power 4 watt.
Kilo India 5, uniform Juliet Dustin in Dallas, low power 1 watt.
Is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India, WV4MFI, Ted Dallas, low power.
All right, let me get those folks checked in. We got W5 GUS Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power 4 watts. KI5 UUJ Justin in Dallas, he's only 1 watt. And WB4MFI, that's Ted in Dallas, he also is low power. Do I have any additional low power short time? Please come now. All right, hearing none, since these are low power and they could fade into the ether, do any of you three fine amateur operators have anything for the net? We'll give you first opportunity. Please come with your call. All right, let's go ahead and do general check-ins. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
November 5 Bravo, Bill in Irving. November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony and Dallas.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zoo Whiskey. Jane, no weapon.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Ranch.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda and DeSoto.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Tango Zulu, Philip, White Rock Creek.
Okay, people are starting to straggle in. Let me go ahead and get those folks. I've got N5BB, Mr. Bill and Irving, NT5TM, Tony, our net control station for TechNet this evening. He's checked in from Dallas, KG5BZWJ near Weatherford, not in Weatherford. KF5ZBL, Mr. Bill, Farmers Branch, WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, DeSoto, KI5KTZ, Philip, and White Rock Creek. I'll take additional check-ins.
This is Alpha Golf, Niner, Sierra Golf, Antonio in Dallas.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
All right, well, we teased three more out. I've got AG9SG, that's in Antonio over in Dallas, ND5F, Virginia, Fort Worth, KB9SOK, Sean, also in Fort Worth. Take one more round before moving to Echolink. Over air, please come now with your call sign, phonetically your name, and where you're transmitting from. Okay, there was just one station. You were all noise, no audio, just pretty much white noise. If you would try to improve your position, increase power, try one more time. I will turn you up to 11, but I hear no audio, but go ahead and try. Oh, more no audio. Did anybody pick him up? Can provide a relay? Okie dokie. Well, that station calling, I'm not being rude. I just can't hear you. I would check you in if I could. I even checked you on reverse and nothing. So I'll have additional check-ins at some point for you and others, and we'll move on to the next section here, which is the Echolink. I'm looking. There are a few people on Echolink, so let's go ahead and let them check in. Please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. I will give you extra time on Echolink.
A5, UP, via Alpha Link.
In Quinlan.
Control, this is Whiskey Zero, Mike Bravo Charlie, Shane.
And Bethany,
have a message as well.
Five, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John in Norman, Oklahoma, and I don't...
Okay, just going down the list here, and I think everybody is in. Let me look again. I'm going to go ahead and include JJ because he may have been the double. I don't know. So here we go. This is who I got. I got K5KTX, Miss Kelly in Quinlan. I got W0MBC, that's Shane and Bethany in Blue Springs. And they have an announcement to make. So I'll go ahead and pause here. Shane or Bethany, go ahead with your announcement.
Down there at W5FC. We are actually tonight in the south of Kansas City at the Heart of America Star Party with the Astronomical Society of Kansas City, and Bethany has got to see the Milky Way in person for the first time. We've been here for 3 nights. The first night was rainy, but the past 2 nights have been clear. We've had excellent viewing conditions. We've seen some pretty cool stuff out here. Jupiter is magnificent. Saturn has been pretty good too. But here, Bethany wants to say hi.
Hi, guys.
And that's W0MBC saying so long from the Heart of America Star Party here in it's about 60 miles south of Kansas City.
Well, thank you, Shane and Bethany. It's great to hear reports from star parties, even outside of the state. We got a number of them here in Dallas area, alternating each week. That's fantastic. And Bethany, congratulations on seeing the Milky Way. When you live in an urban area, it is impossible to see. I've only seen it a few times myself, once on a ferry boat in the middle of the night going across Lake Michigan from Michigan to Wisconsin, and I will never forget it. It was absolutely exciting. So congratulations, and have a lot of fun at the Star Party. Next, I have K5JDW, John in his summer home in Norman, Oklahoma. I'm also including N5IMS JJ in Carrollton. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to anyone else who'd like to join us before we get started. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from. Okay, well, as it says in the song, let's get this party started. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be of ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed ham.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
NT5TM, Tony, you're first on the runway. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you, Tom. I was surprised to note on your shirt there on YouTube that I don't think all those airlines are extinct. At least one of them is still alive, so that was a little confusing. But that's not important right now. What is important is we're having a wonderful net, and in fact, we have another fun net coming up at 30 plus or minus 5 minutes. We'll be talking about beneath the planet of the apes. Not beyond, between, behind, below, but beneath the planet of the apes from 1970. also do have fun two ham events going on the air. The Antique Wireless Association is sponsoring an AM QSO party. So if you've never used AM on the ham bands, you can look up more about that online. There's also a CQ Worldwide RTTY contest going on. And most near and dear to my heart is GeekNet. We have a fourth Monday coming up. Yes, the fourth Monday, this Monday, September 26th at 7 p.m. on this repeater, we're going to have to geek out about something. I don't know what. Beekeeping, stamp collecting. Do you like to tune the carburetor in your car? If you like to geek out about it, it's very welcome, and I'd love to hear your geeky news and news of the weird as well. That's this Monday at 7 p.m. after we've all had plenty of time to recover from Skynet and the afterglow discussion. Don't forget, turkey trot sign-ups are open too. If you'd like to volunteer for something on Thanksgiving morning, w5fc.org is the place to go for more details. Thank you very much, NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Does anyone need any fills? Have any questions? Want to raise? Please raise your hand and put out your call sign. All right, very good. Well, yes, this should all be very interesting. I've got a little ditty on Beneath the Planet of the Apes here in a few minutes. Fine film. Let's see here. What do we got? Oh, well, the usual announcements. AMSAT Amateur Radio Satellite Group, 2 nets for Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m., you'll need Echolink installed and registered, and you can find the net under AMSAT. This is out of Houston, Texas, and is the home of AMSAT. Dallas AMSAT Net East also is on Tuesday night. That's where you can actually talk to the net control at 8 p.m. on this repeater on Tuesdays. Tom N5HYT is usually net control. He rotates that around, and everyone's welcome to check in. If you've been interested in amateur satellite transmissions and contacts and all of that, you want to be here for that. The only time he's not on is first Tuesday of the month, which is the ARC Club Night, so there is no AMSAT Net East. However, there is on Wednesday evening at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater at 147.740 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset is Dallas AMSAT Net West. And that would be Tom again, and he'll be happy to answer your questions. So if you miss him on a Tuesday, you can check him out on a Wednesday. Of course, DARC has its weekly set of nets. Mondays is rotating at 7 p.m. after the traffic net. First week is Ham Fixin's net, because we know not only do hams like to eat, they like to cook. The second week is MCOM 101, the non-denominational chance to find out about all served agencies in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and a chance to talk to some of those people so you can decide who you want to help out. Third week is the second helping of Ham Fixin's net. On fourth week, as Tony mentioned, GeekNet. We expand beyond just the basics of amateur radio and go into super geekdom. Tony does excellent net, so please do that. Drop in and say hello. If there's a fifth week of the month, there is a surprise net. If we told you what it is, it wouldn't be a surprise. On-air participation is encouraged. On Friday evenings, we have the CERT City simulation at 8 p.m. Learn about emergency communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, K5GRH, is usually the net control, but she too has other folks who check in. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday, CERT City, and all are welcome. And don't forget, Saturday evenings we always have from 7 to 8 o'clock is our night of net, starting with TechNet at 7 o'clock until 8. Then we have Skynet at 9 p.m. And then at 10:30, of course, we have Afterglow Movie Net, immediately after the Skynet. First and third Sundays is the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air, or MODA, where you can find out all things about the club that operates this repeater. Don't forget, daily, the ARRL National Traffic System. This is a training net. You can do no wrong. That's at 6:30. It's an opportunity for you to join in and participate in a formalized net to learn about traffic handling. ARRL's first mission was to do traffic handling, so this is a great place to be. Or welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. Now, a little ditty about tonight's movie at 10:30. Listen carefully, everyone. Brent walked down Broadway. He was home, but it wasn't quite home. Everything had that lived-in, post-apocalyptic look. He tried calling a yellow cab, stuck in stalactites, but the vehicle never moved. He dropped by TKTS to get some half-price tickets for Stop the World, I Want to Get Off the Planet of the Apes. And that was a big bust. It had been sold out for years. He heard some music coming from St. Patrick's Cathedral and dropped in. In the choir loft were identically dressed super mental inside-out skin-removing mutants. They were singing. Now, I can't sing this, and I can't sing anyway, but I'll try and do this. I get no kick from mental pain. Mere psychoprose don't thrill me at all. So tell me, why should it be true that I get a kick out of torturing you? Brett suddenly had a major headache. This show was going to be a big flop, and the Stop the World apes were fast approaching. Join us for our next Afterglow extravaganza, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, tonight at 10:30 p.m. Be there, or we'll make a monkey out of you. Okay, Chaz is at the Plano Balloon Festival this evening. He did provide a designated Chaz stunt double, and I think that would be Kelly, K5KTX. Do you want to talk about the TAS club meeting? If you don't, I can go ahead and read it either way.
Tom, this is K5KTX. Good evening to everyone. So the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas is the local astronomy club here in the Dallas area, and the next TAS club meeting is going to be on Friday, October the 28th of 2022, which is the fourth Friday, and the meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and is also held on Zoom. The featured speaker will be the newly elected TAS Vice President, Michael Reimer, and his topic is going to be the International Dark Sky Association. So it should be a really great topic. He's actually an intern for the International Dark Sky Association. He's an advocacy engagement intern, and so he should have some great information for us on that topic. And the Saturday night public observing sessions have begun again. Skynet was actually picked to be on Saturday night so that there would be the opportunity for live reports from the TAS public observing sessions. You can always check the TAS website at www.texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. Now, we did have a star party that was going to be held tonight. It's the new location for the Rockwall Star Party, but I cannot for the life of me remember which park it is going to be at, so I can't tell you which park to go to. There was nothing on the website, on the calendar, so I'm not sure where it's at, but I'm sure they're having a great time. So anyway, that is the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, texasastro.org, and I will give it back to you, Tom. This is K5KTX.
Thank you, Miss Kelly, and thank you for volunteering to do all of Chaz's segments this evening. I am sure you will excel as Chaz, or better, because I know you have better jokes. Okay, next up is the National Space Society events and activities. That would be Bill, N5BB. Bill, what do you have for us this evening?
Thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. I happen to be the membership director and the member at large of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. Our regular meetings are the second Sunday of every month. So our next meeting will be our October meeting on Sunday, October the 9th. It will start at 3:30 p.m. at Spring Creek Barbecue, which is at the corner of Beltline and Highway 183 in Irving, across the street from Irving Mall. The topic has not been published yet, the meeting topic. If you're interested in the National Space Society, which is a group of space enthusiasts, and by space I mean human activities in space. This would be space launches of either space probes or especially humans into space, either Earth orbit or the moon or space probes to other planets, etc. If you're interested, you can send me an email and I can help you figure out how to join the National Space Society. My email address is n5bb, that's November 5 Bravo Bravo, at ARRL.net, or you can also use space@byrom.net, SPACE at BYROM.net, and I'll be glad to assist you. We don't have any, well, I don't believe we have any hot topics coming up, activities coming up soon. If we do, I don't have them written down. But we do have a really big event coming up, Memorial Day weekend of 2023. So in late May of this coming year, 2023, the International Space Development Conference, which is the yearly big conference from National Space Society, will be in Frisco, Texas, right on the north edge of Dallas Metroplex. So that will be in late May. You can do a web search and find it. It's ISDC 2023. That's International Space Development Conference 2023. And the detailed program is not yet developed. It'll take another couple of months before they, figure out who's going to be the keynote speaker and all that kind of thing. It's a good time to join the National Space Society. If you join the National Space Society, our local chapter will give you 1 year free local chapter membership, so you don't have to pay for it separately for the first year. And also, there's typically discounts, big discounts given for the International Space Development Conference if you're already a National Space Society member. So, good time to join the National Space Society. That's everything I have now. N5BB. Thank you, Tom. Oh, before I stop, wait a minute. I have two more quick items. Remember that big events coming up this coming week is on Monday, late afternoon, early evening, is the DART, the Double Asteroid Redirect Test Mission. And that mission, the live feed on the NASA website, the NASA Live, they call it, or the NASA TV. There will be an early live feed, I believe, at 4:30 p.m. Central Time, where they will stream pictures from the camera. But the actual discussion, where they have a presentation with humans, is supposed to start at 5 p.m. this coming Monday. That's 5 p.m. Central Time. and the DART craft should impact Dimorphos at 6:14 p.m. Dallas time. If for some reason it misses, then they will go and develop another target and try to see if they can hit some other target. But they do believe they can hit this asteroid. Anyway, it's just a very interesting test to see if they can change the orbit of this small asteroid orbiting a larger asteroid. The Artemis 1 will not be launched next week, mainly due to the hurricane that's coming up toward Florida. And the next opening, the next window where they could possibly launch would be on October the 3rd, Saturday. So there's a launch at 1:17 p.m. Excuse me, wrong date. October the 2nd, Sunday. October the 2nd, Sunday. There's a launch window starting at 2:52 p.m. That's the next possible date since they won't launch this week, this upcoming week. That's all I've got in 5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill, and thanks for the information. Okay, let's see. Why don't we go ahead and get started with tonight's topic, which is what I brought. I found this article online. It's from 2 years ago, and I thought, this is kind of cool. It's from Mashable.com. There's a whole series from 2 years ago talking about various things and having to do with science fiction and science fact. Well, the one article that kind of impressed me was, how realistic are sci-fi spaceships? So I'm going to read this article to you, and I'll let you know, because as most hams are, we're also super science fiction geeks, but I'll let you know if they say something wrong, because I'm expert. Okay, at more than 60 years into the space age, fictional spaceships appear on our screens at a far greater frequency than the real things launch in real life, although that's changed a little bit in the last couple of years. But that doesn't mean they'll actually fly. When it comes to imagining interstellar travel, the history of space flight up until now hasn't given science fiction designers a lot to work with. All we've seen are basic rockets, useful for escaping Earth's gravity well, plane-like space shuttles used for re-entry, moon modules, the lunar lander, and modular orbital tubes, the International Space Station. When that job is transporting humans between stars, in theory, spacecraft will have... Oh, wait a minute, I skipped a page. I forget, Ann. On the uncrewed side, we've got satellites, deep space probes, and Martian rovers, all designed for a very narrow range of jobs just within our solar system. When the job is transporting humans between stars, in theory, spacecraft will have fewer design constraints. But does that mean they'll appear in all the weird and wonderful shapes and styles that we've seen on screen science fiction? Here's, let's see here, there's a lot of little things in between. To help us assess the realism of famous sci-fi vessels, we turn to Bobak, not Bolak, Ferdowski. You may know him better as Tweet Out Loud, Mohawk Guy. He's the engineer who became internet famous the night he helped land the Curiosity rover on Mars. You remember that guy? I think he has a band, too. Here's what he had to say on a variety of well-known spacecraft, starting with the most famous fictional spaceship of all, the USS Enterprise. Ferdowski grew up on the original Star Trek and served both as a way to bond with his Iranian-American family and a vision of future space that would contain people from a diverse array of backgrounds. It's no exaggeration to say that Trek led him directly into launching real-life space missions. I wanted to make the version of the future a reality, said in an interview. He loves Next Generation too, but the upgraded 1990s version of the Enterprise interior strikes Ferdowski as less realistic than the original. Why? One word: carpets. If you look at spacecraft today, there's a bare bones aesthetic, he said. Every gram of extraneous equipment is another gram of mass you're going to have to spend fuel to lift off a planet, or turn on a dime in the middle of a space battle, say. And if you're going to add another 10 kilograms of carpeting, maybe the 23rd century's bountiful energy supply in the form of dilithium crystals has made spacecraft designers careless about how much mass they need to move around. Maybe all that corridor carpeting is just part of a ploy by Big Dilithium to get Starfleet to use more of its product. Still, the original and the 2000s prequel series Enterprise offered a more believable bare-bones aesthetic. That's probably the reality of where we're going, Podolsky says. The more it looks like a 1980 submarine movie, Das Boot, the more it looks like space exploration. Which isn't to say the original series Enterprise interior had it all right. For one thing, there were all those computer banks full of blinking lights surrounding the crew at all times. Practically, visually, it's a terrible choice, Podolsky says. Look at the way the cockpits of modern aircraft go dark, which means that if there's a blinking light needs your attention, you see it immediately. The next generation LCD panels are smoother, more neutral colors, seem less likely to make the crew crazy. As for the outside of the ship, the design team seems very much a product of the 1960s to Podolsky. The flying saucer married to a Coke bottle with tail pinned straight out of Detroit. Still, it does have a few very smart things spacecraft design-wise. And this is KE5ICX. First of all, it's all one color, meaning you don't have potentially disastrous thermal problems where one part of the ship takes on more heat than the other. Secondly, it's white, but not so white that it reflects every photon, which leads too much pressure on the vehicle. If you're in the black of space, it's good to be a light color, Podolsky says, which is why you see probes, landers, and sun-facing side of the shuttle decked out in gold or white. Not only does it help you avoid taking on too much heat from a nearby star, but you also use a reflective surface as free propulsion. All these bouncing photons can help you move all those extra grams of carpeting. And there's a little side thing on here. It says the ideal situation is a ship that could turn from white to black when it's far from the star and needs to take on heat, which is why Podolsky recently proposed building a Kindle craft covered in e-ink, which can switch easily from one to the other. The other smart thing the Enterprise design does, it puts the warps of nacelles, these propulsion fins, on stalks, far away from the areas of the crew's lives within. That's a useful safety feature in case your futuristic energy resource should start to backfire. We don't want humans near the dilithium crystal chambers, Podolsky insists. As he points out, there are plenty of ships in the Trek universe with a one-piece design sticking their warp nacelles way too close to the main bulk of the vessel. Whoever designed the Enterprise clearly had safety in mind. We know who that is. That's Matt Jeffries. I used to see his brother all the time, Richard Jeffries, at the museum. It was a weekly on Sundays, which is when I went. But that's another story, and I'm name dropping. Let's see here. Next up is Borg versus Death Star. For the most part, Podolsky is more a Star Trek than Star Wars fan. Star Wars is a fantasy that flagrantly ignores physics, which is kind of the idea. George Lucas wanted spaceships you could get into and drive around as easily as cars. The kind of turns the Millennium Falcon makes in space are impossible without an atmosphere. The Last Jedi's bombing run is impossible without gravity. Maybe the bombs were spring-loaded, suggests Podolsky. You didn't think about that, did you? No, you didn't, you geeky people out there. There's no reason for X-Wings to change their wing alignment like that, other than the fact that it looks cool. The TIE fighters don't even have a visible system of propulsion. But that's not to say Podolsky rejects Star Wars completely, like many of us. He is awed by the silent moment in The Last Jedi, where the vast Star Destroyer is ripped in two by a rebel ship performing a suicidal light-speed maneuver. And then there's the Death Star. The Death Star would be a very efficient design because of its perfect sphere, Tverdowski points out. Of any spaceship design, the sphere has the lowest possible ratio of surface area to volume, requiring the least possible amount of energy and material to build and maintain. Ideally, you've also curved the interior, he says. The same is not true of the Borg cube of Star Trek fame. For all the villainous Borg's supposed efficiency, their vast, six-sided, planet-threatening vessel is a massive waste of space. The Death Star may cost an estimated $852 quadrillion in steel alone, but that figure would be far higher if it employed any other shape. That's no moon. It's a highly efficient use of surface area. Red Dwarf. For sitcom, Red Dwarf paid a surprising amount of attention to science. The 1990s show explores what happens when a mining vessel, Red Dwarf, accelerates for millions of years. It doesn't break the laws of physics by going faster than the speed of light, unlike most sci-fi ships, but it gets close, creating appropriately weird time dilation effects. Not only that, the Dwarf was on the cutting edge of future spacecraft design. That radio mast-like scaffolding on the front of the ship to the right of the picture, and I've got that picture up, that's a buzzard ramjet, a theoretical means of powering a ship using nothing but the stuff of space itself. Free-floating hydrogen atoms are compressed into an electromagnetic field until they create a fusion reaction. Buzzard ramjets have fallen out of favor these days since we don't think there's enough hydrogen out there to compress. Still, points for the attempt. And then there's the body of the ship itself, partially constructed from an asteroid the crew mined. Companies are looking at mining asteroids in the near future. They have a ton of resources. You can hollow them out. It's really practical, and it's already in space with no energy required to get them there, Tverdowski said. The Arbogast, you try and say that, from The Expanse. This may not be a well-known ship in the history of science fiction, but the space vessel Arbogast, which probes the mysteries of Venus in Season 2 of Sci-Fi's The Expanse, does something novel and highly useful in spacecraft design. It expands with a large inflatable ring when coming in for a landing. That's exactly what you want, Tverdowski said enthusiastically. Leaving the atmosphere, you want to be as small as possible to save on fuel. On the way in, you want to be as big and wide as possible to increase drag and slow the ship down, he also added. And now a personal favorite, Serenity from Firefly. That bare-bones submarine aesthetic Tverdowski favors is also present in the Serenity, the Yankee trading ship from cult favorite science fiction series Firefly. The ship's aerodynamic bird-like design is appropriate given that it has to enter atmospheres of multiple planets. Very utilitarian is Tverdowski's verdict. Further, he applauds the use of retro rockets on the side of the wings, particularly as they flip upwards during landing. This is reminiscent of the design of Spaceship One, a private suborbital spacecraft, which won the X Prize in 2004, a year after Firefly went off the air. Spaceship One and its successor, Spaceship Two, now being developed for space tourism, actually it's flown and grounded for violating flight rules, flips its wings upward to increase drag and slows itself down in the upper atmosphere, like a shuttlecock. Serenity's controlled rocket landing also looks a lot like the most amazing real-life spacecraft images of recent years, the SpaceX and Blue Origin boosters that can land themselves after delivering their payloads in orbit, saving millions of dollars in the process. There's a level of thriftiness the Firefly crew could certainly appreciate. And now another favorite of mine, Battlestar Galactica and the BSG Galactica. Both the old one and new one, by the way. Like Firefly, Battlestar Galactica, the 2004 miniseries that is, had one big realistic thing going for it out of the gate. Both shows represented space as utterly silent. Galactica also takes the submarine aesthetic and upgrades it to that of a battleship or an aircraft carrier. It's practical, says Brodowski. There's a logic to it. You don't have a lot of big open spaces other than the hangars. Nothing in space is going to be ornate or over the top. Galactica boasts ribs along the length of the frame that act as shock absorbers, helping to explain why it could take such a beating over 4 seasons of war. It also had a rusted, broken-down feel, appropriate for a ship that was about to be decommissioned and turned into a museum when the Cylons attacked at the beginning of the show. Galactica's need to repair and replenish, a constant background plot point, made it unique among on-screen spaceships. Brodowski compares it to the old Volkswagen, known for being relatively easy to fix. Less software, more mechanics. The ship was saved from a Cylon computer virus because it was old and non-networked, largely driven by analog technology and wired phone lines, which brings up an interesting question of whether future spacecraft will need to be similarly air-gapped to prevent any kind of malicious infection. Currently, the International Space Station does have an internet connection, but Brodowski points out that the station mostly relies on older, more reliable telemetry systems. Sometimes, even in the future, old school is the way to go. All right, does anyone have any questions about that? Please come with your call. Okay, give me a second here. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Now I don't need a second. All right, Kelly, K5KDX, are you ready to deliver? What's up?
This is K5KTX, and I will do my best. Chaz, this evening I'll try anyway. So this is K5KTX Kelly, and we call this segment of Skynet What's Up. On September the 17th, the third quarter moon occurred, so the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. New moon will be tomorrow on September the 25th. The first quarter moon is on October the 2nd. On October the 4th, the moon will be at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 369,325 kilometers. On October the 9th, the moon is full. On October the 17th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 404,328 kilometers. Also on October 17th, the moon will be at its third quarter phase. Tom, I hope you're keeping up with the slides because I don't usually read them out like Chaz does. So on September the 26th, the two inner planets in our solar system, Mercury and Venus, will be in conjunction in the early morning eastern sky. So that'll be something cool to look for. Also on September the 26th, the planet Jupiter will be in opposition, which means it is opposite the sun in the sun. So on October the 8th, when the moon and Jupiter are in conjunction in the eastern evening sky, Jupiter will be very bright. On October the 15th, the planet Mars will be in conjunction with M1, also known as the Crab Nebula, in the eastern evening sky. On October the 24th, there is a daytime occultation of Mercury by the moon in the morning sky. You will need at least a pair of binoculars, if not a telescope, to observe this event. But be very careful not to look at the sun with the binoculars or telescope. For the Dallas area, the moon will cover up Mercury at about 8:54 a.m. Central Daylight Time. At around 10:12 a.m. Central Daylight Time, Mercury will be uncovered by the moon. And if you've never seen an occultation of the moon of one of our planets, it's quite a sight to see. So be sure to put that on your calendar. than a month from now, you will need to plan to observe the November 8th total lunar eclipse in the early morning. And Chaz is going to cover details on later editions of Skynet for that event. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the next TAS Club meeting will be on October the 28th, 2022, and the meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and is also held on Zoom. The featured speaker will be Michael Reimer, and his topic will be the International Dark Sky Association. And Saturday night public observance sessions have begun again. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights so that there was the opportunity for live reports from the TAS public observing sessions. So check the TAS website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. Now, I'm not the expert that Chaz is, but do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of this information? Or do you have a general astronomy question? Please come now with your call sign. So, yay, no one called in. So, as the moon wanes, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. Until next time, actually, I will be doing another Skynet segment in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. This is K5KTX.
All right, thank you, Miss Kelly. And guess what? You get the next segment. So no good deed goes unpunished. So please continue with space exploration and space history.
Thank you, Tom. And so NASA released a revised version of its Moon to Mars objectives on Tuesday, forming a blueprint for shaping exploration throughout the solar system. These guideposts in the agency's Moon to Mars exploration approach will help shape NASA's investments as well as those of the agency's industry and partners toward the Moon and beyond, starting with 50 draft objectives developed by agency leaders across the mission directorates earlier this year. NASA invited its workforce, the public industry, and the agency's international partners to provide feedback, and followed up with 2 workshops with industry and international partners to engage in further discussions. The resulting revised 63 final objectives reflect a matured strategy for NASA and its partners to develop a blueprint for sustained human presence and exploration throughout the solar system. They cover 4 broad areas: science, transportation and habitation, lunar and Martian infrastructure, and operations. The agency also added a set of recurring tenets to address common themes across objectives. Artemis campaign represents the capabilities and operations needed to safely conduct deep space science and exploration missions at the Moon, and is tightly coupled with Mars mission planning. Science is a top priority of the Artemis missions, along with key exploration technology objectives. Under Artemis, NASA has set a vision to explore more of the Moon than ever before. With its Artemis 1 mission now on the launch pad, well, actually it's going to be rolling back to the VAB very soon, the agency plans to return humans to the Moon and establish a cadence of missions, including at the lunar South Polar region. These missions set up a long-term presence to inform future exploration of farther destinations, including Mars. In November of 2021, NASA senior leaders began working on the objectives in coordination with an agency cross-directorate federated board whose purpose is to ensure NASA's focus is integrated with common strategic goals and directions across the agency's mission directorates. The objectives enable NASA to explore synergies between the United States and other nations' objectives for lunar and Martian exploration, including potential opportunities for collaboration. high-level objectives were released to the public and the NASA workforce in May of 2022 with a request for comments by June. NASA received more than 5,000 inputs, and as a result, many of the ideas were modified and some new objectives were added. NASA held consultation workshops with both industry and international partners to help refine and discuss the objectives and identify any gaps. Following a successful Artemis 1 launch at whatever date that's going to be, NASA plans to send the first humans back to orbit the moon with Artemis 2 no earlier than 2024 and to the lunar surface no earlier than 2025 on the Artemis 3 mission. NASA will use elements of Artemis to test systems and concepts for the journey to and from Mars. The follow-on Mars campaign will remain connected to the agency's sustained presence on the lunar surface by using the moon as a test bed. The final framework objectives are available online at nasa.gov, and they are pretty interesting to take a look at and see kind of how the direction may have shifted a little bit, but it's very interesting to read. This is K5KTX on Skynet. Now in space history for this past week, beginning with September the 20th, back in 1904, maybe some of y'all remember this, I don't know, Wilbur Wright made the first circular flight in a controlled heavier-than-air airplane, piloting the 1904 Wright Flyer in a complete circle at Huffman Prairie, a few miles outside of Dayton. The flight lasted 1 minute, 36 seconds, and covered 4,080 feet. Also on September the 20th, back in 1963, President John F. Kennedy gave a speech at the United Nations urging the United States and the Soviet Union to cooperate in exploration of the moon. Space offers no problems of sovereignty. Why, therefore, should man's first flight to the moon be a matter of national competition? This was one of several offers of cooperation in human spaceflight made by President Kennedy to his counterparts in the Soviet Union. September the 21st, back in 2014, the Mars Atmosphere and Volatile Evolution, or MAVEN spacecraft, successfully entered Mars's orbit. MAVEN is the first spacecraft to explore the upper atmosphere, ionosphere, and interactions with the sun and solar wind on Mars. Studying the atmosphere of Mars will allow scientists to understand the Martian climate. The ultimate goal of sending MAVEN to Mars is to further understand the planet's atmosphere so that we can send humans to the red planet. September the 23rd, back in 1846, astronomers discovered Neptune, the eighth planet orbiting around the sun. The discovery was made based on mathematical calculations of its predicted position due to observed perturbations in the orbit of the planet Uranus. The discovery was made using a telescope since Neptune is too faint to be visible to the naked eye, owing its great distance from the sun. In retrospect, following its formal discovery, it turned out that several astronomers, starting with Galileo in 1612, had observed Neptune too, but because of its slow motion relative to the background stars, did not recognize it as a planet. Astronomers soon discovered a moon orbiting Neptune, but it took more than a century to discover a second one. Our knowledge of distant Neptune greatly increased from the scientific observations made during Voyager 2's flyby in 1989, including the discovery of 5 additional moons and confirmation of dark rings orbiting the planet. So on September the 23rd, back in 1969, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins donned sombreros and ponchos in Mexico as they were greeted by a crowd of thousands eager to see and meet the astronauts. Jetting around the world as part of the Giant Step Apollo 11 Presidential Goodwill Tour, the crews made their first stop in Mexico City. Their motorcade was slowed to a crawl as crowd control struggled to contain the public's overflowing take part in scientific exploration. At one point, their tour brought them to the doorstep of Pope Paul VI. After 24 countries in 45 days, they finished their circumnavigation with a stay at the White House. On this date, September the 24th, back in 1970, the Soviet lunar probe Luna 16 returned a sample of the moon's surface to Earth. Luna 16 was the first robotic probe to land on the moon and return a sample to Earth. Interestingly, this was the first landing on the moon in the dark, as the sun had set 60 hours earlier. After 26 hours and 25 minutes on the lunar surface, Luna 16 lifted off from the moon carrying 101 grams of material back to Earth. Finally, for this past week, we had a number of astronaut birthdays. Starting with September the 19th, there were three. 1957, Richard Leonard, who was on Space Shuttle missions STS-78, 90, 109, and 123. Also September the 19th, 1965, Sunita Williams, who was on Space Shuttle missions STS-116 and 17 as part of Expedition 14-15. She was part of Expedition 32 and 33. And she is scheduled to fly on the Boeing Starliner 1. So the first crewed mission of that spaceship, she will be on that mission. September 19th, 1987, Kayla Barron, who's one of our newest astronauts. She was part of SpaceX Crew 3, Expedition 66, that launched back in November of last year. September 20th, 1960, James Polzick, Space Shuttle mission STS-90. September 21st, 1955, Richard Hyde, Space Shuttle missions STS-39, 49, and 65. September the 22nd, 1965, Robert Thatcher, Space Shuttle mission STS-129. September 23rd, 1944, Lauren Shriver, Space Shuttle missions STS-51C, STS-31, and STS-46. September 23rd, 1961, William C. McCool, who unfortunately was one of the astronauts that perished on Columbia mission STS-107. And then today we have birthdays for, back in 1930, John Young, who was, of course, part of Gemini 3, Gemini 10, Apollo 10, Apollo 16, and Space Shuttle missions STS-1 and 9. And finally, September the 24th, 1975, Nick Hague was part of Expedition 59 and 60, and you may recall that he was originally supposed to fly as part of the Soyuz mission for Expedition 57 and 58, which aborted mid-flight. That was back in 2018. So they safely landed, and then he was able to join the mission after that. And this is K5KTX. Back to the net.
All right, thank you. You know what I'll do? In order to give you a break, because you have the next segment, I'm going to go ahead and take additional check-ins at this point, and you get a drink of water before you come back. This is KE5ICX. This is Skynet. I'll go ahead and take additional check-ins. Folks, if you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Alpha Alpha 5 Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson.
All right, we picked up one. We've got AA5AH, Robert in Richardson. Let's see, anybody over on Echolink would like to join us? I'll give you extra time to check in.
Quebec 4, Charlie Foxtrot Oscar, Philip from Atoka, Tennessee.
got it. So acknowledge KQ4 CFO. That's Philip over in Atoka, Tennessee. I heard you check in on TechNet. Welcome to Skynet. All right, Miss Kelly, are you ready for your third and final segment this evening, Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week?
This is K5KTX, and hopefully I'm ready to do this. I'm actually excited to do this because our constellation tonight is one of my all-time favorites. So Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of a silent T, Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Cygnus the Swan. Cygnus is the constellation of the Swan. Since it is not hard to use the stars of Cygnus to trace the basic shape of a swan flying along the Milky Way, it is not surprising to learn that Cygnus has been visualized as a swan by different cultures of the past. In one myth, Cygnus is the swan whose form Zeus adopted in order to seduce Queen Leda of Sparta. In another, Orpheus, the father of song, was transformed into a swan after he was murdered. Cygnus is one of three constellations that are involved in the well-known asterism of the Summer Triangle, with Cygnus's brightest star, Deneb, following one of the three stars at the corner of the triangle. The other two stars are Vega in Lyra and Altair in Aquila. The brightest stars of Cygnus form another well-known asterism, the Northern Cross. All right, now it's time for the jokes of the week. How do you get down off of an elephant? Don't, but you can get it off of a swan. That one took me a little while to figure out. Okay. A guy said, "I am great at identifying birds." His friend said, "Okay, what are those on that tree?" The guy said, "Yes, they are all birds." You hear the Pope caught bird flu? It's from a cardinal. Love the sound a swan made this morning, so I retweeted it. What's the difference between bird flu and swine flu and the swan flu? Bird flu, you need treatment, and swine flu, you need ointment, and the swan flu, you need to stick your neck out and wing it. Why do swans make bad basketball players? Always committing fouls. All right, moving on to Deneb. Alpha Cygni is the brightest star in Cygnus the Swan. The name Deneb is derived from an Arabic word which means tail, owing to its position at the tail of the swan. Deneb is also the head or top of the Northern Cross, and as such has been referred to as the Star of the Cross, according to Burnham's Celestial Handbook. Deneb is a blue-white supergiant star, one of the greatest supergiant stars known, shining brightly at magnitude 1.3 as seen from Earth, despite its distance of about 1,700 light years. Vireo is also known as Beta Cygni, a beautiful third magnitude double star, Albireo is considered to be one of the most beautiful double stars in the sky due to the contrasting colors of its two members. The primary is yellow, and the fifth magnitude companion is blue or blue-green. These two colors make for an easily noticed color contrast, and as such, Albireo is a great demonstration object for showing newcomers to astronomy that stars come in different colors and that they are not just all white. Another trait that makes Albireo a good introductory object is the fact that it is easily split by any telescope. In fact, it can be split with binoculars if they are held very steady or mounted on a tripod, which is why it is a candidate for the AL Binocular Double Star Club. Albireo is about 410 light years away, and since both stars share the same proper motion, it is believed to be a true physical pair. Cygnus X1 is the first black hole to be scientifically identified by astronomers. It is part of a binary system with a black hole and a blue supergiant star known as HD 226868 orbiting around each other. Of course, the black hole itself cannot be observed with backyard telescopes, but HD 226868 has a visual magnitude of 8.95, so it is easily visible in virtually all amateur instruments. It lies about half of a degree from the fourth magnitude star Eta Cygni. NGC 7000 is also known as the North America Nebula and located near Deneb. The North America Nebula can be seen with the naked eye as a bright spot in the Milky Way from a dark sky site, if you know exactly where to look. Using a nebula filter held in front of the eye makes this easier. Binoculars or a low-power wide-field telescope are best for observing NGC 7000. In fact, it is generally agreed that smaller, short-focus instruments in the 3 or 4 inch size are best. It can be seen in a 10-inch dot, but even at the lowest power, it can't be seen all at once. NGC 5070 is better known as Pelican Nebula. It is located right next to NGC 7000 out in what would be the Atlantic Ocean, which is an appropriate place for pelicans. It and NGC 7000 are believed to be two parts of the same gas cloud. It is only an intervening dark nebula that makes them look like two separate nebulae, much as the Great Orion Nebula M42 and its nearby neighbor M43 appear to be two separate nebulae, but they're actually a single cloud split by an intervening dark nebula. Messier 29 or M29 is an open cluster of stars that does not stand out distinctly from the Milky Way background, but it might if it were not for the intervening dust clouds. The particular area of the Milky Way where M29 is located is heavily obscured with dust, dimming the stars of M29 by at least 3 magnitudes. M29 would be a very striking object if it could be seen without the intervening dust clouds. Messier 39 is an open cluster and is visible to the naked eye from dark sky sites. David Hutchison notes that he saw it without optical aid. Stephen J. O'Meara also notes that it is visible to the naked eye, appearing as a small fuzzy patch and about 9 degrees east-northeast of Deneb. Being a naked eye object, M39 makes for a wonderful binocular object, but in a telescope it requires low power to see all of the cluster at once. Next object is NGC, which, by the way, I should probably tell you, NGC stands for New General Catalog, so if you're wondering what all these acronyms are, that's what that one is. So NGC 6826 is the Blinking Nebula, or the Blinking Planetary, and looks exactly the way that David Hutchison, who is a TAS member, describes in his article in the Spectrum newsletter. The reason that the nebula appears to blink is because the central star overwhelms the eye. So if you look at it quickly, you just see the star. But if you let the eye look at the entire view through the eyepiece, you will see nebulosity out of the corner of your eye. You look at the star again, and that nebulosity is gone. In other words, use averted vision on this object. It's the best way to see it. Keep switching between averted vision and direct vision, and you will see the nebula blink. NGC 6960 and NGC 6974 and NGC 6992 is probably one of my all-time favorite objects to look at, and it is the Veil Nebula, and was discovered by William Herschel in 1784 with an 18-inch telescope. Robert Burnham Jr. wrote in Burnham's Celestial Handbook that many observers have seen the brightest portion of the veil, which is NGC 6992 or C33, in 7x50 binoculars. In 7x50s, it is faint but unmistakable. Stephen J. O'Mara confirms this. You can see much more of it with a 10-inch dot, but without a filter, it resembles faint cirrus clouds that are fairly featureless. Therefore, an O3 filter is a must-have tool for viewing the veil. The western veil, which is NGC 6960, is easily found because it appears to touch the foreground star 52 Cygni, which is at magnitude 4.2 and is a naked eye object easily visible in a finder scope. There are more Astronomical League Observing Program objects in the constellation of Cygnus the Swan. Just giving you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 75 different observing programs, most of which have around 100 objects. If you were to observe just different objects in an observing program each month, then you could earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year. And that is Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week, Cygnus the Swan. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchison and Dennis Harwell for their research and words on the deep sky objects that I have used, borrowed, and steal for every sky. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Next time we'll take a look at Delphinus the dolphin and Equus the horse. And this is K5KTX. Back to you, Tom.
Well, thank you, Kelly, and I think that is a record for presentations in a row. And I thank you so much, and thank you for volunteering and helping Chaz out this week while he's over watching the hot air and probably producing a little of his own at the Plano Balloon Festival. Okay, next up is me. Space launches for this week. We had two launches, the Iraq, I'm trying to remember what it is, but we had the launch of the I forgot. The Heavy out in Vandenberg Space Force Base, and that was successful going to orbit. And then we also had a Starlink 4 mission with satellites that also went into orbit. These two flights were separated by about 30 minutes from Kennedy and Vandenberg out in California. So if you had a chance to see it, I hope you did. I'm sure I watched it on the video replay. It was pretty cool. Okay, for this week we have, or for the next few days, we have Launch Complex 39D from Kennedy Space Center. The Space Launch System Heavy Lift rocket will launch and its first flight with an uncrewed Orion spacecraft. This has been delayed. We'll just have to wait to see what happens. Next is late September, Falcon 9, Starlink 4-36. This is from SLC 40 from Cape Canaveral. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch another batch of Starlink Internet satellites. There is on September 30th the Alpha Demo Flight 2. This is SLC 2W from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The Alpha rocket will fly on its second test flight with rideshare payload consisting of multiple satellite payloads. September 30th, Atlas V. That's what I was trying to remember, the Atlas. And the last one was the Atlas IV. SES 20 and 21 will launch from SLC 41 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. United Launch Alliance Atlas V will launch the SES 20 and 21, which will provide C-band television and data services over the United States. The rockets will fly in the 531 vehicle configuration with 5-meter fairing, 3 socket rocket boosters, and a single-engine Centaur upper stage. And then I'm checking time here. I'm just going to give the last one here that I'm going to give tonight. October 3rd, we have Falcon 9 Crew of 5 launching from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch a Crew Dragon spacecraft on its 8th flight with astronauts. The Falcon 9 first stage booster will land on the drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. NASA astronauts Nicole Mann, Josh Casada, Japanese astronaut Kyoichi Wakata, and Russian cosmonaut Anna Kikima will launch on the Crew Dragon spacecraft to begin a 6-month expedition on the International Space Station. The Crew Dragon will return to a splashdown at sea. All right, I'm going to move on quickly to recent astronomical discoveries. Brenda, WB5OZL, what do you have for us tonight?
Thank you, Tom. This is WB5OZL. This article is entitled, Geologist Proposes the Number of Ancient Martian Lakes Might Have Been Dramatically Underestimated by Scientists. Lakes are bodies of water fed by rainfall, snowmelt, rivers, and groundwater, through which Earth is teeming with life. Lakes also contain critical geologic records of past climates. Though Mars is a frozen desert today, scientists have shown that Mars contains evidence of ancient lakes that existed billions of years ago, which could contain evidence for ancient life and climate conditions on the red planet. Through a meta-analysis of years of satellite data that shows evidence for lakes on Mars, Dr. Joseph Michalski, a geologist in the Department of Earth Sciences, the University of Hong Kong, proposed that scientists might have dramatically underestimated the number of ancient Martian lakes that once existed. Michalski and the international team recently published their results in Nature Astronomy, which describe a global analysis of ancient Martian lakes. We know of approximately 500 ancient lakes deposited on Mars, and nearly all the lakes we know about are larger than 100 kilometers squared, says Michalski. But on Earth, 70% of the lakes are smaller than this size, occurring in cold environments where glaciers have retreated. These small-sized lakes are difficult to identify on Mars by satellite remote sensing, but many small lakes probably did exist. It is likely that at least 70% of Martian lakes have yet to be discovered. Scientists monitor these small lakes on Earth in order to understand climate change. The missing small lakes on Mars might also contain critical information about past climates. The recent paper also reports that most known Martian lakes date to a period of 3,500 to 4,000 million years ago. But each of the lakes might have lasted only in geologically short time, 10,000 to 100,000 years during this time span. This means that ancient Mars was probably mostly cold and dry as well, but it warmed episodically for short periods of time, Michalski adds. Because of the lower gravity on Mars and the pervasive fine-grained soil, lakes on Mars would have been very murky and might not have allowed light to penetrate very deeply, which could present a challenge to photosynthetic life if it existed. Lakes contain water, nutrients, and energy sources for possible microbial life, including light for photosynthesis. Therefore, lakes are the top targets for astrobiological exploration by Mars rovers, such as NASA's Perseverance rover now on Mars. But Michael Ski warns not all lakes are created equal. In other words, some Martian lakes would be more interesting for microbial life than because some of the lakes would are large, deep, long-lived, and had a wide range of environments such as hydrothermal systems that could have been conducive to the formation of simple life. From this point of view, it might make sense to target large, ancient, environmentally diverse lakes for future exploration. Earth is host to many environments that can serve as analogs to other planets, from the harsh terrain of Svalbard to the depths of Mono Lake. We can determine how to design tools for detecting life elsewhere right here at home. Most of these tools are aimed at detecting the remains and residues of microbial life, said Dr. Dave Baker, an ecologist at HKU School of Biological Sciences, who is well informed about the Earth's microbial systems and lakes. China successfully landed its first lander, Zhurong, on Mars in May this year. Zhurong is currently roving the plains of Utopia Planitia, exploring mineralogical and chemical clues to recent climate change. China is also planning a sample return mission likely to occur at the end of this decade, which could target one of the interesting lake deposits. All right, that's all we got. ScienceDaily.com. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Very good. Thank you, Miss Brenda. And this is KE5ICX. My name's Tom. Okay, we're 2 minutes out from the end of the net, so let me go ahead and give you a couple things on space passages overhead that they're visible to us residents here in Dallas. Nothing on ISS to speak of. We do have Tiangong. This one has some partial passes, so I'm just going to end with that. We have on September 27th, minus 1.3 magnitude at 5:44 a.m. Out of the north, it will, let me see here, 27, let me get on the right line here. It'll be out of the northwest at 6:18, I should say. Reaches highest point at 45 degrees out of the north-northeast. It'll fall to the east at 6:23. On September 28th, there is a pass in the morning, 6:53, minus 1.8 magnitude, west-northwest. It reaches highest point at 48 degrees out of the south-southwest at 6:56, and it'll fall at 6:59. Then on September 29th, we got a minus 2.3 magnitude. That's at 5:55 a.m. It will come out of shadow at 73 degrees. It'll reach its highest point at 80
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are
about 13
functioning
seconds
perfectly.
later,
Afterglow
and it'll fall
movie
at
net.
5:58 in the evening. Okay, I'll ask, are there any final check-ins this evening? Please come with your call, your name, and where you're transmitting from. Okay, well, I think because of college football, we're down on the count. We only had 19 check-ins this evening, but that'll change, I'm sure. Thank you to all who checked in this evening. I hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 o'clock to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration, because on this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations. That could be you. And for all the other DARC nets, if you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org, expressing your interest. You can also follow topics and discussions about this net, astronomy in general, on Facebook, Twitter, and other audio, video streams, video archives, and useful internet resources by going to Whiskey 5 Fried Chicken, w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, and I'll be closing that at 22:30 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use, at least for a few minutes. Subject 3, everybody, enjoy the evening discovering the universe. We're going to take about a 5-minute break, and we will be back to discuss the 1970 movie Beneath the Planet of the Apes, the sequel to the iconic first film. Come back in 5. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear for now.
KI5, KWG, anyone home?
Crews, they all ran to the bathroom because there's another 90-minute net coming up.
Roger, Tom. I just got home, turned it on, and I was like, it's not supposed to be silent at this time. By the way, I'm on that HT.
Well, we can hear you. I think it'll work. It's about, I don't know, 20% noise, maybe 30, so it's there, but you're holding the repeater.
Yeah, not always even getting it, and I'm still on just the signal stick. I have to check for it's in process. And I'll move inside if I find anything to say. KI5, KWG, clear.
All right, well, we'll be here. Brenda's going to be doing the net, and this is her favorite movie, Beneath the Planet of the Apes. So we start in about 2 minutes.
I'm noticing a trend about Brenda's favorite movies.
Well, you know, she loves science fiction. She's very much into the very best of the best, and it doesn't get much better than Beneath the Planet of the Apes, which is Beneath Planet of the Apes, is a great ape movie. Okay, I'm clear. It's less than 1 minute from movie time. This is KE5ICX.
anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the Afterglow Movie Net? All right, this is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. My name is Brenda, and every week we have a movie for us all to watch together. This is kind of like a book club, but not so classy. And then Saturday night at 10:30 or thereabouts, we discuss the movie in our most intellectual voices. So tonight we did the classic Beneath the Planet of the Apes. This was a 1970 film, which was a sequel to the highly popular Planet of the Apes, which I don't remember the year of that. Probably 68 or so, but probably a couple of years before. Amazingly, they only spent $2.5 million making it, and it got $19 million at the box office, so it was a wild success, I'm glad to say. So, Tom read you his version of the plot earlier, his fairly fanciful version, so I'm going to read you at least part of, maybe all of, the Wikipedia version of the plot. Following the events of Planet of the Apes, a time-displaced astronaut Taylor and the mute Nova ride horseback through the desert of the Forbidden Zone in search of a new life far away from Ape City. Without warning, fire shoots up from the ground and deep chasms open. Confused by the strange phenomenon, Taylor investigates a cliff wall and disappears through it before Nova's eyes. The phenomenon disappears, leaving Nova alone. Elsewhere in the Forbidden Zone, a second Earth spaceship has crash-landed after being sent to search for Taylor and his crew. Brent and his skipper are the only survivors, though the skipper dies shortly after crashing. Brent, while noting that he is in the year 3955, assumes he has traveled to another planet. After burying his skipper, he encounters Nova and notices she is wearing Taylor's dog tags. Hoping Taylor is still alive, he rides with her to Ape City, where he is shocked to discover the simian civilization. He observes the gorilla General Ursus leading a rally for the apes to conquer the Forbidden Zone and use it as a potential food source against the objections of the orangutan, Dr. Zaius. Brent is wounded by a guerrilla soldier and taken by Nova to the home of the chimpanzees Cornelius and Zira, who treat his wound and tell him of their time with Taylor. The humans hide when Dr. Zaius arrives and announces he will accompany Ursus on the invasion of the Forbidden Zone. Attempting to flee the city, Brent and Nova are captured by guerrillas. Ursus orders that they be used for target practice, but Zira helps them escape. They hide in a cave, which Brent soon discovers is the ruins of the Queensboro Plaza station of the New York City subway. Realizing he traveled through time to Earth's post-apocalyptic future. After following a humming sound deeper into the tunnels, Brent becomes agitated and erratic and attempts to drown Nova as she drinks, quickly stopping and backing away to another room. Entering the remains of St. Patrick's Cathedral, he finds a population of telepathic humans who worship an ancient nuclear bomb. Brent and Nova are captured and telepathically interrogated by the telepath's leadership under Mendez. They explain themselves to be the descendants of humans who survived a nuclear holocaust and mutated over generations. While claiming to be a peaceful society, despite using mind control and illusion on their enemies, the mutants force Brent into apes march on the Forbidden Zone, but their attempts to repel the invaders with illusions of fire and other horrors ultimately fail when Zaius sees through it. With the apes closing in, the telepaths plan to detonate their divine bomb as a last resort, holding a religious ritual during which they remove their half human skin masks to reveal their mutated pale skin with prominent large veins due to generations of radiation exposure. Brent is separated from Nova and taken to a cell where he finds Taylor. One mutant, explaining they cannot let them leave the city alive, uses his telepathic powers to force Brent and Taylor to fight each other. Nova escapes her guard and runs to the cell, screaming her first word, Taylor. This breaks the mutant's concentration, freeing Brent and Taylor from his control long enough for them to overpower and kill the mutant. Brent describes the bomb the mutants worship to have Greek letters Alpha and Omega on its casing, and Taylor recognizes it as a doomsday bomb capable of destroying the entire planet. The apes invade the subterranean city, making their way to the cathedral. Many of the mutants are either captured, killed, or found to have died by suicide. After Nova is killed, and in the midst of the chaos, Taylor and Brent reach the cathedral as Mendez is shot dead after raising the bomb into activation position. The humans attempt to stop Ursus from accidentally setting off the weapon, but Taylor is shot as his pleas to Zaius fall on deaf ears, which, when Brent is gunned down after killing Ursus, the mortally wounded Taylor curses Zaius as he collapses and dies, bringing his hand down on the activation switch, triggering the bomb. The scene whites out and voiceover narration states, in one of the countless billions of galaxies in the universe lies a medium-sized star, and one of its satellites, a green and insignificant planet, is now dead. Very happy story. All right, let's do some check-ins. We'll start with general check-ins. We want your name, your call sign, your name, and whether or not you saw the movie. You don't have to have seen it to have an opinion or to join us. You're welcome whether you've seen it or not, but do let us know whether you have. And we're going to discuss the plot, the characterization, and special effects. So please come now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony in Dallas. Yes, I saw the movie.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo, Zulu Whiskey, Jane Leopard. I saw the movie.
November Victor 5, Fox, Virginia in Fort Worth. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom in Louisville. Yes, I saw Brenda's favorite movie.
Small but stalwart group. We got ND5TM, Tony, N5BB, Bill, KG5BZW, Jay, and November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia, K5ICX, Tom, and everybody has seen it. Now, do we have anybody on Echolink? Any other general check-in? Well, let's get started. Let's just go in order because I'm not smart enough to do it any other way. We'll start with T5TM. What did you think about the plot of Beneath the Planet of the Apes?
Good evening, Brenda. This movie gave me a little bit of trouble. Some of our movies are excellent. Some of our movies are awful. I didn't quite find this movie excellent or awful, so I had to think more about what I was going to say. I really thought about the plot on two levels. on a deep level, viewed as a very serious sequel to the first movie, it was a little bit frustrating. The initial Planet of the Apes really seriously posed a question about social structure and evolution. Could this new ape society be better than ours? Are we humans unworthy of the world that our ape descendants inherited? Are we or are we not? We don't know. The plot of this movie jumps straight to the answer. No, not only are we not worthy, the apes aren't worthy either. The movie began with a Nuremberg rally, and then went downhill from there with a big mass military campaign, people who claim they're peaceful because they only torture people and trick them into murdering one another, and then apes wielding, semi-automatic weapons. This version of the movie, this movie made it very clear that no, things are not going to get better. We're all just trapped in this loop of endless destruction. Viewed somewhat less philosophically, the movie was kind of annoying. I just can't believe that you'd have these big giant caves with all the landmarks of New York compressed into a block, and all this tile and stuff that had survived for thousands of years, and an atomic bomb polished to a golden gleam that conveniently said Alpha Omega on it instead of having an 18-digit national stock number pasted on the side. It was very entertaining. It was very fast-moving. There was a lot of action, but it was unsatisfying on a deep, and it was kind of unsatisfying superficially because it wasn't as plausible as I wanted. So, yet, I enjoyed it. I kept watching. It made me crave popcorn, which I'm making right now. I'm kind of running late. I'm making the popcorn. We're talking about the movie. So, it was kind of a, if it was this for a novel, I'd say it was a page-turner, but it didn't make me think quite enough. So, it answered the questions raised by Planet of the Apes too quickly. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Next, N5BB, Bill, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Brenda. This is N5BB. I kind of partially agree with what Tony said. So I in general liked the movie. In other words, I felt it was enjoyable watching it. I had no inclination to turn it off or stop it. I wanted to see it through. I thought it was a kind of a beautiful movie. In other words, it was, to me, pretty good images. I mean, prints, sound, everything was, so much better than the movies we've seen from the 50s and early 60s. And this had a quality, just a production quality that was, pretty good. So I enjoyed that part of it. The story was kind of sucked you in a bit, but like Tony, there were some things about it that, were bothersome. To me, this bomb, which kind of looked like a missile, but wasn't clear, maybe it was just a big, long bomb. At one point, when they lowered it, some fumes escaped. I mean, this is 2,000 years after this thing was supposedly created. Would it really still operate? The other humans there didn't act like they had created it. They had some weird assembly to activate it with these crystal-looking things that pushed up and down. That was kind of weird. We've seen that in some other movies. I don't know where they got that from. I think it looks very hokey to have those, those crystalline-looking structures that you move up and down with different colors. The red one, of course, the red one was the one you don't want to touch. That's the one that makes it go off. But I thought that was kind of hokey. exactly understand the fact that they somehow could run that bomb and set it off, which means I guess they had some kind of electricity. Where did it come from? We didn't see where they got their food. The water in the cave kind of dribbled down from the top, but where did they get all their resources? Did these humans that were these alternate humans that had mind control, did they have any technology? It didn't really look like it. They were using ropes and pulleys and clubs and things. Although there were some guns visible, but it just, I wasn't convinced about the technology and lack of it. It's like the bomb was this advanced technology from the past that was miraculously still working. Why? How in the world did that happen? So there's some things there about the plot itself that were bothersome. Another thing that bothered me about the plot was at the end of the movie, it looked like the whole world was blown up. Now, I really have not seen the later movies, so I don't know how they got out of that. But they definitely, killed off these major characters, and to me that was rather sad. And I would have thought they could have come out with some other plot. N5BB breaking. They could have come out with some plot that would let them continue to the future. I wish there to be more hope, and I saw that the characters seemed to want there to be more hope. But as Tony said, it was rather dystopian. I mean, the humans at some point appeared pretty stupid. The ones that weren't the ones that were in the caves, the ones that were up above on the surface, seemed kind of stupid, and they'd lost their ability, their language and everything. And the ones in the caves had this miraculous ability to do the thought control things, which wasn't really explained. So in other words, there's a lot of plot things that were aggravating, just like Tony. I was aggravated by those. But it was an enjoyable movie, even if I ignored those things. If that makes any sense. That's all I got for now. N5BB.
Okay, KG5BZW. Jay, go ahead.
Right, this is a KG5BZW. This film, don't know what to say about it. I'll agree that the production value of it was pretty good, but the overall story, it did not have the I can't even label the qualities, but it did not have some of the qualities of the first film. And it was kind of disappointing that way. There were the whole peace thing. That I don't even know. It's obviously a film of the late 60s and 70s, the Vietnam War and all of that, and it seemed to try to make commentary on our involvement in wars, and of course, nuclear arms and all of that. It just seems to not really. I don't know if it really succeeded or not. I'm sure it entered the common. I don't know. Gosh, the other day, but some things that even the masks that the people were wearing when they took off their masks for their religious ceremony, it seems awfully like some biblical sermons I've heard. I don't know. I guess that was okay, but it seems like they were trying to draw some analogies, and they were just a little bit too on the nose. Not really fully fledged. The mechanism, the atomic. I'm even wondering if any nuclear weapon is going to have fission bomb, regardless of if it's a fusion bomb or not. You're going to have either fission components directly, or you get the fusion indirectly from for making a super bond with fission components. But anyway, if it's and there's the cobalt casing or whatever, it sounds a lot like the Doomsday, or I can't remember what they called it. Oh my gosh, Dr. Strange is what I'm trying to say. It seemed derivative, which also annoyed me. There's a lot of interesting, kind of cool elements. The mind control thing. I kind of thought of these the humans as kind of some sort of weird Amish cult, but with mind control or something. So, I could actually excuse some of the lack of technology. I don't know why I got that idea. It just kind of seemed that way. It's like, oh, we got mind control or mind things. It's like, what do you need if you got that? And it's like, I have to admit, I was like, I don't know. Maybe technology would be simpler if you can throw imaginations like that. But otherwise, I mean, it was an entertaining film. So like I've just kind of rambled on too much. So that's all. Thank you about BCW. Imagine that.
Brenda, are you there? KE5IC.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think I dozed off. Okay, whose turn is it? Virginia, in November, Victor 5 Foxtrot. What do you think about the plot?
Good evening, everyone. This is Virginia in the 5F. Well, I will start by admitting, it's difficult for me to do this in a room full of science fiction fans. I'll start by admitting that I have not seen the original Planet of the Apes movie. I remember when I was younger, and these movies were maybe about 8 or 10 years old, and they were rebroadcasting them on they were rebroadcasting them on afternoon movies or something. It was kind of a big deal. I remember people kind of making a big deal deal out of the fact that they were on television back then, and I remember seeing little bits of them, but I don't remember seeing the first one. I don't recall. I had time to watch both of them, but I only watched the one for this evening because I had some other things I wanted to do. Well, I would agree with some of the others. I'll try to say it maybe a little more explicitly. This movie, the time it came out, and the original did come out in 1968, and that was a time when there was lots of change going on. You know, late 60s, early 70s. We had racial stuff. We had civil rights stuff. We had abortion stuff. We had war. We had Cold War, nuclear weapons, and oddly enough, this movie I was just thinking about it, kind of reminds me of that one we watched a few weeks ago, the Teenage Caveman movie, where it was like this post-apocalyptic, you know, it's kind of the surprise twist ending, you know, this is a post-apocalyptic world, and these cavemen are actually post-apocalyptic humans, you know, who don't remember that humanity has lived through a nuclear holocaust. And so I did see that little bit of a trope, this is an opportunity to put nice looking actors in really skimpy clothing, so I couldn't help but see that. It was pretty obvious, you know, and so there was that. I think the attempt here, and I would be able to speak to it better if I'd seen the first movie, I think the attempt here was to make some really, you know, really deep statements about do human beings have the right to, you know, run the world. You know, there was a lot of that, I think, environmental and all kinds of things in movies back then, and we still have some of that. And it was, I think it's odd, but interesting that they would say, well, okay, so, you know, a planet where apes evolved from men, you know, is an interesting concept, and it makes you wonder what happened to all the original apes, or how did that happen, and that seems kind of weird. My mind doesn't really want to go there. And then, of course, there were still people, but they were all sort of cave people who couldn't talk, and they were great for target practice, I guess. And then there were these highly evolved, you know, maybe the radiation fallout had a different effect on those people with the, you know, they seemed to worship the bomb, so maybe it was because they felt that was, you know, ultimately maybe way back in their lore, that was what gave them the weird mutations that caused them to become this other different race. So it's like we got these three races. We got the apes that evolved from men, the men who didn't evolve, and then the men who did. And it's kind of like exploring what could happen in the future, and what if all of it happened, and how would that work, and who would be in charge. And I think the sort of the cavemen type, you know, people who didn't evolve and even de-evolved, they sort of represent like innocence, and then I think the apes are representing like, you know, just a sort of alternate civilization, and then the telepathic sort of highly evolved humans are maybe like a riff on, like, you know, what we think we are. You know, we think we're in control, and we're actually doing the right thing because you know, we're the most highly evolved, and we're not doing anything bad. We're just making other people hurt each other with our mind control abilities, and we have our bomb, and we worship it. And as far as like the hokiness of the bomb, or the fact that it wasn't some sort of regulation bomb that you would find in a U.S. military, like, you know, nuclear bomb silo, I think the idea is that this bomb was developed, maybe after a few nuclear skirmishes, and maybe into, well into the 21st century, they developed this new kind of bomb, and this was the ultimate bomb that was going to destroy everything, but the preceding nuclear holocaust kept us from having to use it. And so I don't know how they got it in St. Patrick's Cathedral in the middle of New York City, but hey, it's a movie. So I thought the plot was kind of predictable, but also interesting. It makes me want to go back and watch the first movie. I think some of the characters there are people that we've seen before in the first movie, and the chimpanzee characters. Chimps are lovable and cute, and they're kind of our favorites in some ways. So it made sense that they would be the lovable characters who are kind to humans. And then the gorillas, of course, it makes sense that they'd be the military, and the orangutans, they call them the old men of the forest. So maybe it would make sense that they're sort of the wise, thoughtful. So I think it was kind of interesting. It makes me want to go back and watch the first one and see where this all came from, and maybe see if I can get a better handle on what they're trying to say here. But overall, I thought the plot was pretty predictable. I knew it was Earth, even though I hadn't seen the first movie. And of course, I see the Statue of Liberty on the beach, and all I can think of is Spaceballs. I'm sorry, I can't help it, because I do know that was a thing from Planet of the Apes. It makes it very clear in that movie that they were making fun of that. So anyway, I'm not going point by point on the plot. I think others have said enough about that, but those are just things I was thinking of, and it kind of makes me want to see the first one. So I'll keep it short so that Brenda can stay awake. Back to net in V5F.
Thank you, Virginia. And KE5 ICX. Tom, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Brenda. This is KE5 ICX. Well, I'll give you a little different take on the film. A couple of things. First off, I did see it in the theater, and I had also read the book, Planet of the Apes, prior to. So here's the thing. I saw it as a double feature at the Dearborn Theater, had dinner with my parents, of course, at Hoppy's Restaurant, German restaurant, right across the street from the theater. Great place. I loved that. I still miss their food. But at any rate, it was a double feature that night, and we went to eat at Hoppy's, and we took longer than imagined, so they were running the double feature, I think, twice. I don't recall. At any rate, I was kind of disappointed because we didn't see, at least initially, Planet of the Apes. Now, back to the book. The book, written by Pierre Boulez, Planet of the Apes, they are on an alien world, and they learn the simian language. They're not mutes or anything like that, but they learn the simian language. There's this disconnect because of that. Nova's still in the thing, but she's on this planet. So the ending, the twist ending from the first film with the Statue of Liberty, don't forget, this screenplay was written by Rod Serling of The Twilight Zone. So his twist ending, actually Pierre Boulez said, I wish I had thought of that. Well, there's some plot holes with that, as we all figured out. But at any rate, that changed the whole trajectory of the film and gave it the ending. And then, of course, this whole sequel thing came about because the first film had that twist ending. And they decided to pursue it further, and it created all those other films, the other 3 films that came after that as well. And then even in the reboots, there's been 3 of those, I think. So it continues to go on. Television series, 70s also, and animated television series as well. So this thing always has legs. Everybody likes the story. So there you have it on that. Now, a couple of plot points to comment on from the others, and that is that I think, and I agree with Virginia, that these are just the different societies, the advanced aliens with the mental telepathy, and the apes playing much like humans. That part is always part of the story, and it was in a terrible way. Simply said that it doesn't matter where you are, humans or apes or whatever. Once they become intelligent, they're going to be doing things that are somewhat uncool, or they're not in the, the wonderful individuals that we think, that the power corrupts absolutely. And that was, of course, brought up even heavy-handedly in this film. The first one did have the anti-war thing as well, so they kind of brought it out. Really, the second film does have kind of a first act and second act. The first act is really just a reprise of Planet of the Apes so that you could follow along. And then the second half of the film added the whole thing underground and the beneath part. So you had Planet of the Apes and beneath the Planet of the Apes in the same film. But I thought it was interesting because of the way that occurred, that the similarities to what had happened on Earth, and it was happening again, only with a different species. So I think that was part of what they were trying to suggest. The advanced bomb gig, I agree. What the heck is going on with a 1,000-year-old bomb or 2,000-year-old bomb that still has a gaseous material or liquid that turns into a gas? That should have either evaporated or been pretty much just eaten away and at the base of whatever this thing was. The rocket itself was a bit underpowered, I thought, personally, because if it's going to destroy the entire world, what the heck does this thing have? So possibly, as Tony mentioned, it was more advanced. Maybe this bomb came about 1,000 years later. We don't know how long it was until the apes actually took over. There could have been a period of time where the decline of civilization happened, and eventually they lost the ability. These aliens may have come from, or the telepaths may have come elsewhere. They are existing and decided to do the telepath thing, and were able to rise above the human extinction event and survive. But they also mentioned they're very defenseless, and they are. There's nothing they've got in particular that can do anything except that bomb. That's the only thing they got, and they were scared of the apes coming in. That was just totally unacceptable, and they knew that they would be wiped out because they had weapons and all of that. So I think that is why they acted the way they did, and they wanted them the information, as anybody would, about their enemy. They couldn't provide it. I think they were a little bit draconian in the way they acted, that they instantly go and show their own colors, which were undesirable, by harming the Trent and Nova and Taylor. All three were, brutally, mentally beaten by these folks. So that made it pretty terrible for them, and it just went to show, again, another intelligent species is not really all that wonderful. Now, one other thing in this is that the film ends on a very stark note, and it's somewhat unsatisfying because we're expecting something to happen. We're expecting something to get better. We're expecting our heroes to survive and do all of that. Very rarely is a movie, and particularly a sequel, allowed to destroy its main characters at the end of the film. I mean, they have to come back to life. Search for Spock's an example of that with Star Trek. Well, we can't kill off one of our favorite characters. We got to keep them alive. Here they didn't care. And if I remember about the series, this was supposed to be the one and done sequel. You've seen it. You've now seen it again. Basically the same plot. And now we're terminated the thing. But of course that didn't happen, and now it's a franchise of nothing but repeats and sequels. So I'm going to stop now. Back to you, Brendan, KE5ICS.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anybody else that wants to join us?
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf Cruise in Arlington. I saw the film.
KI5, KWD, Cruise, welcome to the net. Would you like to make comments about the plot on this movie?
KI5, KWG. Yeah, I love a happy ending. No, I was thinking of Battlestar Galactica. The reboot of it was very, very good, and then the writers, when it got canceled, got frustrated because they had something much more complex in mind and ended it pretty much the same way. Kind of an in-your-face. Oh, and just for you, Brenda, using my best academic voice, Cave Girl, short skirt, good. I think that's probably 5 movies in a row we've had this. But that's all I've got. I'm kind of unprepared for class tonight. So, KI5, KWG, back to you, Ned.
Okay. Well, it was 1970, and women were generally objectified in movies like this. They couldn't, I mean, why even bother to wear that little outfit? It just did almost nothing to protect her from the elements like clothing is supposed to do. But that's Hollywood. How many movies do we have to see where they just beat up on human beings? We're violent, we're going to destroy ourselves, we're just not even worth saving, and given a chance we'll destroy the earth. Just over and over. I've just lost count of how many movies I've watched that had themes like that, and here's another one. So the apes are very, very human-like. Their motivations and their organization and their thought processes are, you know, if you couldn't see them, you wouldn't realize they weren't human because they act like humans. And of course, that is a judgment of the human condition, of human beings and our nature. And but the human cave people type in this were so, well, they just didn't seem to have much of a personality. So you don't know if they were violent or conniving or what. And I always had a hard time with all these movies buying the idea that the simians, and they worked together, except they had a kind of a caste system, and which I thought was a little strange. And what about the other primates on the earth? Where did they stand in this? And they never really explain that. They don't have the physique to ride horses and make guns and do the kind of things that they did. They don't have the manual dexterity. But, it's a movie. So, I never understood what the Forbidden Zone was and why Charlton Heston or why Taylor just ran into this thing and then disappeared. I would have tried to stay far away from it myself. Just not buying the whole underground thing. First of all, even in a few thousand years, the topography above New York underground is not going to look like California. It's just, they don't have the rocks, they don't have the geology there, it wouldn't have been like that. And, do these people just stay underground and never venture out? What they do for food? And if they had gone out into the world, wouldn't they have been seen by some of the ape creatures? I just thought that was unbelievable. And since they had all mutated and all looked alike with those, strange skin, why did they put on human faces? What would be the point of that when they all look alike? It's like I just wasn't buying that one either. And the idea that we're going to attack the apes with a bomb, but we'll be fine, I just wasn't buying that either. We're going to attack them. And if they're so smart, why didn't they create the kind of weapons that they could fight the apes with, like guns or bows and arrows and things like that? They just didn't seem to have much in the way of technology going on. And I question whether the bomb would still work after a couple thousand years or whatever it was. Well, let's move on. Characterization. NT5TM. Tony, go ahead.
Good evening, Brenda. Do you want to pause and take a round of check-ins and come back to me just in case?
I took check-ins just before I spoke, but I guess we can. Anybody else want to check in? Okay, go ahead, Tony.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, my brain failed. I'm not as coherent as net control. That's why I'm not net controlled. I want to pass some credit back to Virginia, because I think she was the one, Tom, who said the atomic bomb might have been created during the decline of civilization rather than, before the first big bad thing happened. I did not think of that. I just made fun of it for not looking very military and not having a proper national stock number. With characterization, I was actually kind of happy about this movie. Well, the characters seemed very shallow. It's one of the only movies I have ever seen where the male character defies the rule established in Galaxy Quest, where Sigourney Weaver's costume is ripped to shreds and the male lead's is not. And his costume is just as skimpy as hers is. In fact, my notes on this movie are full of comments about sunscreen. Gee, I hope there's some sunscreen in their survival kit. How do they avoid getting burned? They're laying out there in the sun. They're all so white. Why aren't they blistered? So I thought the characters were honestly pretty shallow. I was just pleased that the eye candy was equally shared for everyone. NT5TM.
Good point. All right. November 5, Bravo Bravo. Bill.
Thank you, Brenda. This is N5BB. Continuing a few things about the plot before the characterization, or maybe this is a little bit of both. There is a meme, which is an internet meme. It's something you can actually search for, and you can listen to it as a little sound clip. And I actually wrote it down early in the movie because I thought, ooh, that's a meme. And sure enough, I just looked it up on the internet. It really is an internet meme. Here it is. Dr. Zira, the chimp, that's the one that's trying to save the humans. She says, she's talking to Dr. Zayas. She says, what will he find out there, Doctor? And Dr. Zayas says, his destiny. Isn't that kind of an over-the-top thing to write? What will he find out there, Doctor? His destiny. That's kind of early in the movie, and I really thought that was kind of weird. But that is a sound clip. You can do a search on it. You can find that as a text and a audio clip that's around different places. What will he find out there, Doctor? His destiny. Another thing I thought was kind of interesting about the plot, down there underground, what does he find? He finds a telephone booth with a rotary dial on it for a rotary dial phone. Now, this movie came out 52 years ago, and it's kind of interesting, but that technology is so ancient that if you show any young person, I'm not talking about a high school student, I'm just talking about somebody in their 30s or something, maybe, definitely their 20s, you show them a rotary dial phone, they don't know what's a telephone even. And you talk about a telephone booth, and that concept is also meaningless to somebody. So I thought it was kind of interesting that, he recognized it immediately, but the astronaut did. But of course, even humans here in 2022, young humans, wouldn't have any idea what that was. So I thought that was very interesting. It's like a vacuum tube. It would have been completely impossible for a young person today to understand what in the world that could do. Let's see, N5BB break. This movie came out in around spring of 1970. Well, there was something else occurring then. There were a lot of anti-war protests. In fact, things like Kent State, who you younger people would have never heard of, but us older people remember, that occurred right in that time frame, as long as all these other really big university anti-war demonstrations. It was right after Nixon did the move into Cambodia, and everybody was all up in arms about that, literally. Inside BB. So you notice in this movie the chimps, the young chimps, the young ones at one point actually had signs or something. They were doing an anti-war protest. They were yelling and chanting and marching around, which just looked exactly like the anti-war protest right when this movie was coming out. So, of course, the movie was in the can before the peak of the protest, but the protest had been occurring the previous year. So, this is definitely a case of putting, and of course, atomic bombs were big in the news, very scary to everybody. So this is a case of putting the current political thing that was on the television, on the evening news, and in the newspaper on the front on the front page, it was taking all those topics and putting them right into this movie, which is kind of interesting. Movie of its time. Let's see. Characterization, as has already been mentioned, you had the orangutans, the gorillas, the chimps, and they were very superficially characterized. They were in these different categories. The gorillas were very warlike, and the chimps were much more peace-like, and the orangutans were the heavy thinkers, philosophers, and things like that, which I thought was kind of interesting. I didn't really understand how in the world these humans that lived above the ground couldn't talk anymore, and it looked like they didn't have shoes and much of clothing. I don't know who made their clothing. They didn't have hardly anything. And then the ones that were underground had nothing really technological except that rocket from somewhere, but they had, although somehow the water spurted up when he moved around, they had but a lot of these things, it's kind of hard to figure out where they came from. Did those underground humans create them, or were they leftover technology from previous generations? Who really knows? It wasn't explained. But why did the humans diverge this way? Not clear. Not clear at all. And like others have said, I didn't understand the scarred faces under all those masks. That was a little silly. Anyway, I guess that's all the characterization in 5BB. Thank you.
Thank you. KG5BZWJ, go ahead.
KG5BZW. Okay, so there really isn't that much to say about the characters. If you've seen the first film, they just kind of continue their roles. Ursus, I should have looked at the first film. I don't recall that particular character, but what struck me about that character, I don't know, it was something about the way underneath the mask. I think it was the way he moved his eyes or something. It's kind of it actually was kind of surprisingly excuse me. Well, it was better than the other characters. Let's just say it that way. Excuse me. I know in later films they actually redid the mask technology. I remember researching that before when we reviewed the third of the series, but I'm pretty sure it was the third film that they. I'm sure they improved even with the second one, but by the time of the third, I think it was really refined and a lot better materials were used. But anyway, it was interesting just looking at just the subtleness of his eye movements, or just I don't know. It wasn't just the eye muscles. Anyway, whatever. It struck me. That's all I have on that. Of course, the mutants were pretty flat. I wish they had developed a little bit more character with them. It's just kind of boring. You know what? I'm not even going to mention what I was thinking about mentioning. They were kind of uncreative. You couldn't even say that about how they credited the actors. I'll just leave it at that. Oh, God. Anyway, yeah, they were just so flat and boring, and I guess, I don't know if that was another incidental comment or incidental commentary on religious belief or what, but I don't know. I wanted to have some sort of feeling for them, and I didn't. I mean, it just like they were there, and I don't know. Carson Heston back, and Brent, who I thought they did a good job. But no, I'll give her that too. Even though she was mostly eye candy, but yeah, I like Tony's comment about having equal opportunity eye candy here. Anyway, that's all I got. KG5BW, back to that.
Thank you. November Victor 5 Foxtrot, Virginia. What did you think about the characterization?
This is NV5F. Well, it's going to be kind of like what I said earlier. I would love to see the first one. I think a lot of character development that we didn't see in this one was probably done during that one, and especially the dynamic between the chimpanzee couple and their kind of their general magnanimity towards the, I guess, sort of in this case, sort of the lesser humans. I think there was an attempt at kind of showing there that there was this kind of endeared relationship, and the character Nova, I thought she was kind of interesting because it's hard to play a character that doesn't talk. It's very difficult, and I think they were trying to show that the de-evolved humans were the roles had been reversed. They should have been kind of under the care and concern of the more thinking groups on the planet, and instead they were being kind of mistreated and treated as less than. I think there's a lot of bold statements being made there that may even be very politically incorrect at this time. I don't think you could make this movie now and not have there be all kinds of upheaval. People probably get kind of freaked out. I did like the chimpanzees. I liked the orangutans. They were just kind of, they seemed sort of, at least attempting at being thoughtful. I liked the attempt at making, even within, as somebody said earlier, even within the ape society, there were different groups of people with different opinions, and you had the young war protesters, which definitely was a thing of the time. I thought the astronauts from our time, I thought they did a pretty good job of making them to be at least sympathetic characters. I can't imagine how I would feel if I were suddenly 3,000 years in the future or something. So, or 2,000 years or however it was. I think it was almost 2,000 years. It was like 39 something. I can't remember the year. Anyway, I always try to put myself in their shoes, and I saw a level of attempt here at making an empathetic group of characters. I know that when Brent and Nova and Taylor were getting beat up by the telepathic, supposedly harmless, nice people who only made other people beat each other up, that that definitely can stand for something in the world even today. There's a lot of conjecture about how there are these elites, and I think that's who they kind of represented in our society even back then. I'm sure there were concerns about world elites who want everybody else to just beat up on each other so that they can have all the wealth and all the power and make the rest of us, eat dirt or whatever. And I think that's what that was kind of representing. They worshipped arms and things like nukes that can basically, they can use to control other people. I did see that religious thing is interesting. Just that idea that it almost was an anti-religious thing, characterizing religion itself as something that's inherently ignorant of the truth, like, oh, we worship the bomb and the fallout, and we're so, religion is so blind and stupid that that people will worship things that are like completely ridiculous, so I thought that was kind of interesting. I'll say yes, equal opportunity eye candy. I can get down with that, and just on the humorous level anyway. I'm not into objectifying anyone. So I don't know. I thought the characters were maybe a little bit not developed, but it might have been because there was this assumption that you had seen the previous movie and you'd seen their development then, but that's a flaw of many sequels, is that there's not a lot of character development because the presumption is that the people watching it are kind of this built-in audience and they just want to see their favorite characters and see them with, as few clothes on as possible, I guess. Anyway, I thought there were some good attempts made and some pretty good acting and a very weird concept that if I kind of put myself in the middle of it, is pretty stark and pretty startling, and definitely they use characterization, at least of groups of people, to make some pretty bold statements in this movie, and it does kind of make me curious about the original. So I guess it sort of did its job, which is what I think a sequel should do if you haven't seen the first one. So I will turn it back over to Net. This is NV5F.
Thank you. KE5ICX, Tom, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Brenda. This is KE5ICX. I was doing, while listening, I agree with everyone's comments. In fact, they're so in-depth that I don't think I could actually, offer anything new. I went through and I was checking out the characters, and particularly those who played the simians, and who they were. I thought it was very interesting that General Ursus was played by James Gregory. Now, you may not know who he is under that name, but you do know parts he's played. In Star Trek, now remember General Ursus is the gorilla with the big cat and the helmet or whatever the heck that thing was, and he's leading his fellow apes into battle. And he has a wonderful voice, and I was trying to think, who is that guy? Sounds familiar. Well, he is familiar. James Gregory played the character of Dr. Tristan Adams in Star Trek in the episode Dagger of the Mind. That's the one where they go to the mental colony, and he goes and he reprograms everybody, including Captain Kirk, about that Christmas party with that gal. So that was interesting. General Ursus was played in the television series that came later on, also with a great voice. This one was Mark Leonard. Mark Leonard played Spock's father in episode Journey to Babel, and then also in the movies. So I thought that was interesting. The two of them had Trek backgrounds and were in these movies. The last one that was interesting is Albina, played by Natalie Trundy. She is known for her roles in different things, but she was married to the producer of this movie, Arthur Jacobs. That's right. And he was her second husband, and she starred in 3 other Planet of the Apes movies. She was in Escape from the Planet of the Apes. She played a human, Stephanie Branton. That's the one that when we watched, she was driving the car and trying to get Cornelius out of there. Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, she played Lisa, and then Battle for the Planet of the Apes, she played Lisa, which was one of the, I think it was one of the apes in those two films. So they got a lot of use out of her, and she was also in Huckleberry Finn. That was her last role, which is also a Arthur Jacobs production, the TV thing, as Mrs. Loster. So there you've got somebody who really appeared in as many movies as some of our regular cast members, which should have been, in this case, our, boy, I'm starting to get tired here. Who was it? I can't do it. Roddy McDowell. That role was played by, McDowell was doing another film, so he was not available, so David Watson took the role, which I didn't even realize it sounded like Roddy McDowell. I thought he did an okay job. He wasn't a primary character in the second film, but still I think it worked really well. So I guess I don't have anything else to say. I really don't have a lot on the acting. It was okay, serviceable, nothing super fantastic, I think. So I think the ensemble cast kept me interested overall, although I think Planet of the Apes did a little better job overall. It has a better story and pacing. This one had more action, which did help the film from its predecessor somewhat, but even still, it's still a favorite. I'll watch this one over any of the later ones, and it would come in probably second for me on the original Planet of the Apes series. Some of the reboots in that I think are better, and some of the television series one, there were 13 episodes there. There are several really good ones there that go back to themes about human beings and living and having overlords and powering their instincts and needs. Okay, that's it for me, KE5ICX.
Hey, KI5KWG. Cruz, what do you think of the characterization?
KI5KWG. The only thing that really stands out for me, I think we had some really good actors involved in this, and some big names from that time period too. But maybe the best acting probably comes from those actors portraying the apes, because with the masks and wardrobe, they were believable. They were, you liked them. You understood their motivations, and they did all that without having facial expressions, and that must have been a very difficult job for them. That's about all I've got on the characterization. But I want to go back, is right after I mentioned my Battlestar Galactica ending, which was an in-your-face by the writers, and then seeing it, here, of course, in the original Planet of the Apes as well. And I want to contrast that. That original came out in 1968, but also in 1968 we had Kubrick's 2001, and such vastly different views of humankind. And one is the teleological end of man is to be something greater than we are now. And what a beautiful message that was. It really didn't occur to me until Brenda mentioned that all of these films from that era in particular are about hating on humans, and we're going to destroy everything, and that's not a good message. That's not an entertaining message. It's nihilistic, and I I think maybe that's why these movies, all the Planet of the Apes, never really had an appeal to me. But back to the good. Wearing an ape costume and selling it, that's some good acting. That's all I've got on this. KI5, KWG, back to you, Nat.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to check in? Okay. Well, my 2 cents. The original movie, the movie won an Oscar that year for costumes, because people like the ape costumes so much. An interesting side story is that it was released the same year as 2001, and I think it was Kubrick said, maybe they thought we used real apes in our movie, because he was kind of taken aback, because his apes were believable, whereas the Planet of the apes were more cartoonish. So anyway, people seem to like it. They seem to like watching it. Yeah, lots of good actors in this movie, and some went on to do some amazing things. One quick side note, James Franciscus did the voice of a movie called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. If you want to see the stupidest movie ever made, just be my guest. It was definitely a sign of the early 70s, the age of Aquarius, where everybody was getting all hippy-dippy and maybe too much dope, I don't know. But it was totally, totally silly. The book won, sold 1 million copies, was very successful, so they made a movie, and Franciscus did the voice of it, and Neil Diamond did the music for it. I went to see it and liked it at the time, and later I'm going, that was really dumb. But anyway, I don't know if you could actually see it now. It's been buried. But I think one of my complaints is that when James Franciscus got out of his crashed ship, at first, without seeing him up close, I thought it was maybe a backflash with Charlton Heston, because he did resemble him somewhat. Same hair and sort of a general look. I mean, obviously, when you see them up close, they're not similar, but it did confuse me in the beginning. I thought everybody was pretty well cast. Can't complain about that. It's just so much dumbness with the mutants and the stereotypical simians and so on. But I actually found the movie pretty entertaining despite its faults. It was definitely watchable. And of course, plenty of fight scenes to keep you entertained. Lots of that, lots of conflict. So it had a lot of the right elements to make it a good movie. Okay, let's move on to, it's almost midnight, so I think we're all going to be pumpkins pretty soon. Talk about special effects or anything else you want to talk about. So, Tony, NT5TM.
Thank you very much, Brenda. Aaron and I have enjoyed our popcorn, and yeah, this movie was fun. It wasn't great, but it wasn't awful either. It was at least enjoyable. And although the cinematography and the music were not as amazing as that in the first movie, where they were frankly both amazing, they were good. They made a positive contribution. The music was Goldsmith-esque, although not the same, because it was, a knockoff composer. But it supported the mood of the movie and was interesting and didn't distract me. And likewise, the cinematography, although it didn't necessarily support the plot, I mean, how did people live in that incredibly bleak, deserty, forbidden zone? It was beautiful. They tried hard with the budget they had. So, yeah, I wanted to give points to the music and cinematography and production design. They really did their best. NT5TM.
N5BB, Bill.
This is N5BB. I agree with Tony there. You know, when you look at the all of the apes, you don't. I mean, there's a suspension of disbelief. In other words, you don't disbelieve that they're actual, creatures. So I don't. To me, the mask and everything were good enough. It was good enough to make you pretty much think. Now, it wasn't perfect, but it still didn't look too hokey. Now, what was weird, and this I think may have been a little joke that the screenwriters were playing on us, the audience. Think about the scene where the humans that lived underground, where they took their mask off. Think about that. It wasn't the ape mask coming off to reveal the humans. It was the human mask coming off to reveal nothing. So I thought that was kind of an interesting touch. I think that was some screenwriter that was just kind of pulling our leg. He was kind of a little inside joke there, kind of. We're using all these masks. Well, let's just act like that the underground humans had masks on too. So I think that was just a joke, I think. Okay, that's all I got. N5BB.
And KG5BZW. Go ahead.
KG5BZW. I don't know that I have much to say. There are things I could say, but yeah, it's about punching times up. I did find this interesting little comment under the trivia section on IMDb. It reads, despite the original being a significant success, the budget was slashed for the sequel. It went from $5 million to $2.5 million in one fell swoop. It was mainly due to 20th Century Fox teetering on the brink of bankruptcy, and then
Elvis?
Several failures. Now I'm summarizing here. And there was also, I remember on those when this budget was slashed, the original lead director actually quit. So, I mean, there was quite a bit of drama, I would say, related to the behind the scenes, just from just the whole production of this thing, and for them to have come away with a film that is not terrible. Given all of that, I think I have to give them a thumbs up. So it's
W5.
Francisco, what is his name? I have to wonder just how much was. Now I'm conjecturing, but I do have, knowing that, I have to wonder, like, what was the actor that played Brent, was he going to actually play the Charlton Heston character or what? I don't know, but yeah, that's pure me just make up stuff. But other than that, what
did appreciate the remark earlier about that you made about Stanley Kubrick's. I guess he was chagrined at not winning his film not winning the award. I guess it would be an award for makeup. They both came out in the same year, and his remark about, well, maybe they thought we used real apes. And of course, his movie was sort of the reverse. You know, it was actually exploring how men evolved from apes. If that's the theory that people choose to, I'm gonna be pretty vulnerable here and say I don't agree with the theory of evolution. However, I do love 2001. It's one of my favorite movies. I watch it on a regular basis, and I thought that was a pretty interesting observation that his man apes were so believable that I can see how people might have thought they were actually apes. But there are scenes in 2001 where their faces are shown so close up. They have a human-like jaw, and you can see the eyes of the actors, and it's very obvious they're not apes, but they're very convincing. Whereas, the Planet of the Apes, the makeup effects are passable, but campy in some ways, and but pretty good makeup for the time, because you've got these actors in full makeup that are being fairly expressive. It's hard to be really expressive, but it's not a whole lot different than watching like an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine, where a character's face is in full makeup, and the only expression they can really do with their face is maybe with their mouth and their eyes, and the rest of their face is so plastered on. But anyway, that's one thing, the Stanley Kubrick and the 1968 and all the irony on that is not lost on me. I'm going to disagree a little with Bill's thing about the masks being like a joke. I think it goes back to the thing I was saying earlier. I really feel like the telepathically evolved humans were, they sort of did represent like this small group of like world elites that are hiding, they're hiding underground or behind the scenes, and they're running, they're controlling with religion, and they're controlling with the threat of war, and they're controlling, using mind control, but they try to look like normal people, and when they pull their masks off, they're kind of grotesque, and even though they think they're nice, they're so evolved that they don't ever do anything mean. They just make other people do things that are mean, and in reality, they're the ones that are kind of ugly and cruel and gross. So in comparison to the other sort of species on Earth at the time. So anyway, without going into too much depth, it is past midnight. So thanks, Brenda, for running the net. And I actually did enjoy the movie and enjoyed talking to you guys about it. Y'all have a great night. This is NV5F.
All right, KE5ICX. Tom, parting comments.
All right, well, thank you, Brenda. Well, the Star Trek references still kick in. One of the things in this movie was the Leonard Rosenman score. Jerry Goldsmith was not available. He was working on Patton at the time, so I think he was in post by then. But at any rate, that's what was going on there. What else was I going to say about it? I'm a little tired myself. The special effects had some interesting things to it. They were pretty elementary, I think, although their little one block, as Tony calls it, the one block New York City was interesting. I thought that was nicely done overall, and considering the fact that their budget was only $2.5 million, it was cut back from $5 million. I think it looks pretty good overall. As a film like that goes, they of course reuse things like Ape City and some of the other stuff. There's also a mention they actually did use a cathedral. It wasn't St. Patrick's, but another dressed cathedral to do those scenes. And there was also the song that they sing, which is really annoying. the Mutants is actually, when played correctly, All Things Bright and Beautiful from 1848. So it had a actual tonal reference to something in the past that actually worked. But I think they just went all minor chords to make that happen. So it's available if you want to hear it. Just go to the website, link in, you'll find it. There's a wiki on that, and you'll find the link to it. I guess that's... Rosamund, did I mention Rosamund did Star Trek 4, the motion picture, the Return Home, I think it was. So he also did scores for science fiction film Fantastic Voyage, which was, I thought, pretty good, and a few other things. So Rosamund, to me, is a decent composer. He died in 2008. He had a lot. He did East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause. Some of these others you wouldn't know. Twilight Zone. He did that for television and combat series. So he's written for music for a number of iconic shows, and I think he did a good job with that. Back to you, Brenda. KE5I6.
Okay, next KI5KWG, Cruise.
KI5KWG, I'm only sticking around. I'm hungry. I'm only sticking around to find out what we're going to do next week. Make it fun. KI5KWG, back to net.
Let's just make it so then. I don't really have anything more to add and it's very late, so let's call on KE5 ICX to please tell us what I picked next week.
I'm frantically looking it up. This next film will be for October 1st. It is the 1966 masterpiece, War Between the Planets. That's next week's movie, KE5I6.
Okay, it does not sound familiar, so we'll see. I'm sure I will love it. All right, I want to thank everybody for checking in tonight, and y'all have a good evening. This is WB5OZL, Brenda, and signing off. Good night.
Brenda, I got a quick comment for you. This is N5IMS